Wow, this is nice.
Thank you very much.
This is really nice. Who's gonna be cleaning down here?
My kitchen, I am so stoked about. This is fantastic. I don't have to move my stuff around. I have to trip over my wife's stuff. She doesn't have to trip over my stuff. This is the best thing. I'm so psyched for this. Whew. I just want to thank you guys for watching and supporting me throughout this whole time and just being there and subscribing. And you're obviously here to find out about meatballs, right? That's what this video is all about. But you know, I gotta give you a little brief intro as to how this thing came about. You gotta see how this came about. When you're a chef, right, you really don't have an off button. You're cooking at work, you come home, you're cooking, and that's cool. I mean, that's what we do. We love it, you know? It's like we don't need to have a specific time to cook. We just do it all the time, as we're always on. And I got my buddy Rick, who you've seen in other videos, and he says to me, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we have a meatball cook-off? And we'll see who makes the best meatballs. And we'll do it on your day off. I'm like, really? On my day off? Whatever, it's all good. But here's the problem. The problem is, I don't know how to make meatballs. I never made meatballs and sauce in my life. This is gonna be the first time I'm making meatballs and tomato sauce, if you could believe it. I mean, I know how to make meatballs because every culture has meatballs. The Greeks call them keftedes, but we don't put them in sauce. Not in a red sauce. Like, I've never made the meatballs that I'm gonna make now in the past. The meatballs that I want to make, I don't want to get a recipe for. I don't want them to be just like your standard meatball. I don't want to mimic anybody. I want them to be creative and start from scratch. So whatever recipe I come up with now is gonna be the first time for me and you. I decided to go with American ground Wagyu. So I have a friend, her name is Maria Maroney. They own Maroney's restaurant in Northport. They just opened one right in my hometown of Southold, which I'm super psyched about. And I went up to her, I said, hey, give me some pointers on meatballs. I don't want any secrets, I just want to know what you would do or suggest that if someone were making meatballs they should do. She said, a lot of garlic, a lot of love. My friend Tony Capitola, the owner of Carlton on the Park, super chef, super homegrown Italian from New Jersey, told me the same thing. So I'm gonna use, for that 1 pound of Wagyu, I think I should go with 8 cloves of garlic, but I wanna roast 4 of them. So I'm gonna put 4 in our oven here until they're nice and toasty brown. Now I want to use ricotta cheese in my meatball to give it a little creamy texture, but I'm worried that the flavor might be a touch on the, when it heats up more like a cottage cheese. I'm not too thrilled about that. And just for the record, I just want to let you know that I hate ricotta cheese. Can't stand it. I hate manicotti. I think it tastes like paste. It's terrible, except for this one right here. This ricotta cheese. This is unbelievable. This stuff is delicious. The only complaint I have is they put it in this package. I'm trying to understand what they're doing with it. They're turning it into a lollipop or an ice cream cone, whatever. Once you open it, if you don't eat the whole top, what do you do with it? And there's no lid. Just a recommendation to Calabro, put a lid on the bottom or something so you can cover the thing up. So I'm gonna mix a little bit of this with sour cream. And this is where I get into a lot of trouble with the Italian community. Nobody who's Italian puts any kind of onion in their meatballs. But I feel the need to put some minced onion in. I think this dehydrated minced onion in there was gonna give it a little sweetness. It's gonna combine perfectly with my roasted garlic. Cross my fingers and hope for the best. 3 grams. I won't go more than that. So around here, there aren't really too many butchers, and getting ground pork isn't the easiest thing to do, especially if I'm not buying it from my local restaurant purveyor. So I decided that I'm gonna try taking the inside of this sausage. It's a sweet Italian sausage, but before I do that, I wanna taste it cooked and get an idea of what the flavor is gonna be. I don't want the flavor to be synthetic, I want it to be really nice and delicious, so I'm gonna just take the skin off and then fry it up in this pan over here and see what it tastes like before I add it to my beef. So it tastes pretty good. The only problem with it is they put fennel in it. You can definitely taste the fennel. I don't know if I want that to be a part of my meatball flavor.
Scottish pin oats are gluten-free and they're not like traditional oatmeal at all. I'm counting on it to give a unique character and texture to my meatball.
It looks pretty moist. I have a feeling that once this gets put in the sauce and it slowly simmers all day, the oats are gonna absorb the moisture from the tomato sauce that it needs, and it's gonna be perfect. Let's give it a taste. Very moist. Sort of wanna make the meatballs bigger than a golf ball, not quite the size of a racquetball. Kind of like that. Kind of nice, they don't really stick to your hands. It's kind of perfect. So it looks like I got a total of 36 meatballs. I weighed one of them, they were about 3.5 ounces, so a little under a quarter pound. Had these meatballs in the fridge overnight, they're nice and tight. I'm gonna pop them in the oven at 450 degrees and brown them off. I wanna render some of that fat off, and then I'm gonna deep fry them. Let's talk sauce. Normally, I would make your classic tomato sauce using San Marzano tomatoes, garlic, bay leaves, salt, pepper, olive oil, butter. That's it. Very simple. Wouldn't go further than that. But this stuff here, this organic tomato sauce from Costco, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. This is not your typical jarred tomato sauce. I know Italians who go into the supermarket and when they pass by jarred tomato sauce, like their relatives actually roll over in their grave. I get it. But I also know Italians who've tried this and they kind of side talk like quietly so no one's listening. This is like the best tomato sauce in a jar. So I'm not Italian enough to reinvent the wheel, but I am smart enough to doctor this stuff. So I'm gonna use this as a tomato sauce for my meatballs. You ask any Italian, a real Italian who makes meatball sauce, and they'll tell you the same thing. You want to add flavor to that sauce, you put in a piece of pork. Got a couple of key points here. The meatballs go in the oven with the oven at 450 degrees. You don't want the meatballs to cook in the oven, you just want them to brown and release all that excess fat. The oil that the meatballs were fried in was brought up to a temperature of 350 degrees. You simply put them in there just to get a crust on the outside of the meatball. They don't have to be cooked thoroughly in the oil. I would like to keep this simmering for 6 hours between 180 and 200 degrees. I don't want this to boil. When 6 hours are up, you'll have the best meatballs you ever had in your life. I hope. So Rick beat me fair and square yesterday. He put out a delicious meatball. Congratulations, Rick. It was really right on the money, delicious. You know, there are times when I look in the mirror, all these lines in my face reflecting on what I did wrong. The oat flour should not have been put in dry in the meatball. it absorbed all the moisture out of the meat. It created a very dense meatball. I knew I was in trouble about 2 hours into the cooking process when I tasted the meatball and it was extremely dense. I thought that after cooking it for another 4 hours it would fall apart, but that's not what happened. And once the texture was off, the flavor just didn't matter at that point. Allowing yourself to be creative in the kitchen is really what it's all about. The most important thing is that you use quality ingredients and you experiment. What Rick did yesterday was he set a precedent. Did I lose the competition yesterday? Absolutely not. I gained a wonderful evening of memories gathered around a table with great friends. I know Rick well enough to know that next year we will be having another meatball competition, so I have a full year to practice and come up and perfect my recipe. And hopefully next year there'll be more than 2 meatballs involved, so there'll be a little bit more competition. Bottom line is this: create. Create from your heart. Be passionate. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Use quality ingredients that speak for themselves. Do all that it takes to create memories around a table with friends and family. Thank you for watching this channel. I appreciate you tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button and we'll see you again next week.